Good morning, and thank you for being here. I have the pleasure to introduce a new topic. It's a contribution from different research projects, all having in common that they are focusing on small island developing states, their vulnerability, and proposing some way how to combine the disaster risk reduction with the climate adaptation. I will open the speech, and at some stage I will pass the floor to Coco Varna from the United Nations University in Bonn. Now, there are a few messages perhaps to start with. It doesn't need to be repeated that the small island states are a specific group of states, very characterized by unique configuration of vulnerabilities to natural hazard and to climate change. There are several talks going on right now about in different sessions. You might also have heard that the UNFCCC has accepted or is exploring a new mechanism that should allow the small island states to receive funds to invest in disaster risk reduction and climate adaptation. Now we believe that this is right. This is not only for the reason that the SIDS have not caused the climate change and are likely to suffer more from the impact. The SIDS are comprising something about 1% of the land surface, roughly 1% of the population, and the cumulative GDP is about slightly less than 1%. However, it's a small bit, let's say, it's a small piece of the entirety. But they are also home to an incredibly rich ecological ecosystems and cultures and places with unique history. We have 38 UN member states from SIDS. There are more countries involved, included in the list. And altogether, they have about 40% of the votes in the United Nations Assembly. Now, this is the overview of where they are located. They are concentrated in different places around the world. We are doing research on several places on the island, trying to collect the data, analyze the risk, and come then with a cumulative knowledge that might be extrapolated for all SIDS. We have worked in Mauritius, did a climate risk assessment for the Republic of Mauritius, for all the islands including. We are working in the Caribbean regions, where we looked at the water security. We are conducting a capacity development project for several geographical region and sub-region in trying to compare the cumulative body of knowledge and help perhaps the countries to learn from each other. Now if you look at the economic development since the beginning of the financial economic crisis in 2007, you might notice it's uncoupled from the way how the society, how the states developed in terms of in social or environmental terms. If there is a correlation between the GDP, cumulative GDP over this period of 5-6 years with the environmental vulnerability index, then it's very weak. So almost it's indicating that the GDP that is taking place on SIDS is, let's say, disconnected from the nature preservation, or is disconnected from the social development of the societies. The same applies also when you look at the disaster risk exposure. What you see in many places is that the development is claiming large proportion of the unique coastal ecosystem, whose services reduce the risk exposure and help perhaps to attenuate the natural hazard impacts. Again, there is a weak correlation, very weak, not significant correlation between risk index in the GDP development. And this is partly because the GDP does not take into account what's going on in terms of environmental protection. And this is also part because the GDP or the economic development, how it's conceived, does not take into account the future damages, future losses we will suffer. So it makes sense in this context to try to help the small island developing states to become more resilient. But this should not be done in an unconditional way. You might have heard about the flash floods that had hit the capital city of the Mauritius some 6 weeks ago. 11 or 12 people died in an event for which we calculated the expected return period of higher than 300 years. We have, this is an extract from our risk map for the comprehensive flood risk assessment of the Mauritius. And this is the capital city. You might see the blue area is the area with highest risk exposure. It's exactly where the city is located. Now, when you look at the other small island developing states, you will find that about 1/3 of the capital cities are located in similar location, highly exposed to risk, both from inland floods and from the coastal floods. Now, only 22 out of 38 SIDS have implemented the National Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction and reported about the performance, what has been achieved. And even in those cases, the achievements is rather poor, around moderate progresses in those countries. Now, what we believe is why the SIDS deserve an attention as a unique group of highly vulnerable states. The development aid and the new scheme proposed by UNFCCC should be put in place in a way that encourage environmental protection, protection of vital ecosystem services, and social development. We believe that there's a room for partnership development. Most of the countries lack the capacity for risk analysis, proper risk analysis, data collection. The data, if you look even in the records of how the SIDS perform in terms of Millennium Development Goals, you will find most of the countries there's no information available for. There's a straightforward way how to combine the disaster risk reduction and climate adaptation first in the development strategy of the islands to avoid to put the wealth into the harm's way. There are interesting initiatives of regional cooperation both in Caribbean and the Indian Oceans. And my colleague will speak more about it in terms of insurance, how several states might come closer together and offer a unique financial and economic instrument serving all of them. There is very little investment or development aid which is earmarked for disaster risk reduction and climate adaptation. And we believe in the new international agreement this should be increased. There are several projects where we look at the specific situation of the individual small island developing states, hoping to collect and understand, gain the insight about the specific situation of those islands, which we will then bring together to the level of all SIDS and proposing a new way of measuring economic and social development. I have the pleasure to introduce Coco Warner from the United Nations University, who will take from this point on.
Thanks very much, Yarrow. And hi, everyone. My name is Coco, and I am from United Nations University. We're partners with FEAM on various disaster risk management activities. I'm also executive director of an organization called the Munich Climate Insurance Initiative. And it's that work that I'd like to tell you about in just a couple of minutes. So as Yarrow was explaining, people in small island states deal with all sorts of risks. And we've had the chance over the past couple of years to work in the Caribbean with 5 island countries to see whether risk management, early warning, insurance approaches, and other kinds of risk reduction could help them deal with food security and livelihood security. And so first question, what do people do today to manage their risks? We were able to undertake a kind of survey, a risk assessment, a risk management survey together with the German Technical Cooperation Organization, or GIZ. And this is what we found. In 4 countries, so we surveyed Grenada, St. Lucia, Jamaica, and Belize. These are 4 of the 5 countries that we're working in. And I'm just going to focus on the areas in red, if you can see them. People do all sorts of things to manage weather risks today. But some of the ones that really kind of popped out of our survey were that, for example, in St. Lucia, 96% of the people use their savings. If they get hit by a hurricane, they use their savings. Now, that's a really common thing. But what we're concerned about is that people also use their savings to put their kids through school, to invest in their businesses. Savings are to get ahead in life, but people are using them to get back to ground zero when they're hit by some kind of weather catastrophe. So we're really concerned that people are using their savings, which are supposed to get them ahead, just to get back to ground zero. Some other things that they do, if you come down to the bottom here, a large amount of people, again, if you look in Jamaica and St. Lucia, about half or more than half of the people just don't repair. They go on in life without getting back to where they were before. They don't repair their pumps. They don't repair their greenhouses. So that kind of activity then puts them behind in terms of development. And many, many of the people that we talked to in the tourism sector and in the agricultural sector told us that risks like hurricanes, too much rain, too little rain, drought is a problem, really are putting them behind and making it harder and harder for them to do their jobs and their livelihoods. So another thing is waiting. A lot of people just wait. They wait for help from the government, or they wait for something. But waiting, you don't know what's going to happen there. So the question that we had is, could approaches be developed to help people get ahead, even though they're struggling with these weather-related problems? And so with that background, with some climate fast-track funding from the government of Germany, we're undertaking a project to see if we can combine early warning systems. Everybody has a cell phone. Basically, every village and almost every person has a cell phone. So we're working with people like Ron Jackson of ODPEM in Jamaica and other local disaster risk management authorities to use cell phone technology to send early warning messages when rough weather is ahead. We're using insurance solutions to help people stabilize their livelihoods. And we're also working with local credit unions and other financial institutions to provide financial stability at a little bit of a higher level. Almost everybody wants a loan. Nobody cares about insurance, but people want a loan to be able to invest in their businesses and get ahead in life. But a lot of times, people can't access loans because they're too high risk. And some of those risks have to do with natural hazards. So we're trying to combine these tools in ways that can stabilize people's livelihoods and help them do what they really want to do, which is to develop. The exciting thing about this approach is that it's being launched next week. For example, in St. Lucia, we'll have a chance to work with our local insurance companies, which are actually going to market and sell the product that we've had a chance to develop with them. So this is going live, and we'll be reporting back our lessons learned continually to you. We'll also launch in Jamaica, and Grenada and Belize are a little bit farther along down in the docket. If any of you want to find out more about what we're doing, I have just a couple of these little project brochures. They explain basically the term sheet is in here and a little bit of the approach and our partners. So if you're interested, it's here for you. And thanks a lot, and good luck with all of your work.